You are tuning in to Access Live, a show about raising awareness, what's going on in the community, and to address the issues that impact youth and their families that have serious emotional and behavioral challenges. We are located at the Brookins Building at 1776 East Washington in Urbana, Illinois, and at the downtown location at 202 West Park Street.
And we're back. This is Access Live, your weekly community education and engagement initiative of the Access Initiative. We are really having a blessed October, I think, because we still get to water our plants and see some beauty when we walk out. It's fading fast, but let us continue to be grateful for the weather we have and to make sure we're out and getting some sense of sunshine and fresh air every day for our health and healing. And you know, that's what this show is about. The mental health and healing of the African American community, which is very difficult to tease apart, and why should we? From our emotional health to our spiritual health to our physical health, and yes, of course, to our intellectual health. That's what we try to touch on every week, and I am so happy to have in the studio with me this afternoon my brother Chris Ham. Chris is the founder and director of New Media, CRISP, don't you love that? CRISP Media LLC. And he is also the co-founder and chair of Info City CU, Champaign-Urbana. We're going to get to Info City, but we're going to take our time getting there because we want to build up to the big finale of what Info City is. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Imani. I'm very excited to be here.
Yay! Chris loves y'all. That's why he's happy to be here. And that's going to become very, very apparent as our conversation moves forward. So for those of you who get the announcement over email, you heard us say we're still having conversations about closing the digital divide. How long have we been having this conversation, Chris?
For a very long time.
A very long time. We can't even count, huh?
I've been talking about it for at least a decade.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
decade is a bare minimum,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about what is the digital divide? Why are we still talking about it after all these years? Who's in charge of the internet? Is anybody in charge of it? And what role are black folks playing? Or are we once again left in the dust? I hope the answer to that is no, but we will get to that. So again, it is almost 2015. And the question before us is, are we with it? Or are we late to the party? So, we're glad you met up with us this afternoon. We hope you'll be willing to give us a call at 359-9227. That's 359-9227 if you want to talk about computers and access and community computing and digital technology and how we use it or don't use it or should use it, or even a real simple question. Nothing simple enough. Nothing's too complicated. Give us a call at 359-9227. So, Chris, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of the African American population would you say is technically competent?
Well, it depends on how we define technical competence. But if we're looking at it as use, we're actually not that far off from the rest of the world. We're at about 80% now.
Okay, so then roughly 80% of African Americans, and you're talking about nationally, right?
Yeah, nationally.
Yes, okay. Roughly 80% of African Americans are somehow connected.
Connected, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that could be there's a computer with internet access in at least 80% of our homes? Does it mean that? Or there's some place they can get to where they can get that access?
It's some place they can get to, but really where we shine is mobile.
Listen, first time I went to the continent, and every time I've gone back since, and in Asia as well, the mobile is the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and wait, this is even before tablets came about. They call them, what's your MP, your mobile phone. We just say, give me your cell.
Right.
Everybody else says MP. So yeah, the mobile thing is big, and it's also pretty young though. So I should probably ask a more specific question. What percentage of African American households would you guesstimate are plugged in?
Now, don't quote me on this,
but
I'd
it's
say
a
about
guesstimate.
I'd say 50 to 60%.
And see, that's scary to me. 50 to 60% as compared to the majority population. What do you say?
I'd say that'd be closer to 70 plus.
And see, I think that's pitiful too.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's break that down even further. So if we're at 50 to 60%, and that essentially means there's a computer in the home,
right,
and there is a cable cord or Wi-Fi somehow that you can communicate with the rest of the world.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Because some people have computers, but maybe they don't have internet access.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. And we know in this part of the century, what are kids going to do? It's a part of the curriculum. You have to have access to computers, to the internet, to do your work.
Well, let me just share this with you. So I have a daughter who's at Kenwood, and all their standardized testing now is on the computer. And so not only are we seeing if little Chris knows how to read and write and count, but he has to know how to use a computer.
Yeah.
Because he might be getting answers wrong or might not be scoring as high, not because he doesn't know the information, but he doesn't know how to use a mouse.
Can he navigate?
Right, and we're talking about kindergartners.
Right.
Kindergartners.
We better get serious. We better get serious. And some people make the argument that young people are good at this and better at this than adults, and they would even make the argument that young black kids are because of all the video games they play. So of course we get the eye-hand coordination and all of that stuff. So I do think their brains, if you looked at my brain and a 15-year-old's brain, I think you would see something different. Not just all the corrosion in my brain, but you'd see some extra wiring.
Right.
And so I believe that that's true, but I don't want to make a big case out of that because I don't know when it comes to the seriousness of navigating what needs to be navigated to be an excellent student, where we fall there.
Right.
What do you think?
Knowing how to use the technology and what you do with the technology are two totally different things. So yes, our young people, because they've had it since birth, I'd say anybody under the age of 20 has grown up.
Oh, yeah.
The internet as we know it is about 20 years old.
Right.
Exactly. And so they know how to get around, but where are they going? Are they going to places that will help them with education?
It's all out there, but
it's
are
out
we going?
There. It's available, but from what I've seen, what I've read, we have the champions of social media.
I know, don't say it.
We keep Facebook, Twitter.
Keep it alive.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that, these places they just recently reported their hiring. We don't represent 2%.
We ain't ready for the jobs.
We don't represent 2% of their workforce.
Okay, so let's play with some numbers there. So let's say, what percentage of the social media traffic, we'll call it that, is African American social media traffic?
I'd say it's higher than our percentage of the population.
Okay, so in the nation, we're 15%, I think.
We're probably 20 plus percent.
Yes. So, and everybody knows on this show, we use these terms all the time: racial disproportionality and disparity.
Yes.
So usually we're behind, right? But here, we're ahead of the curve.
Absolutely, we're ahead of the game.
But we're going to tie that to what you just said.
Yeah.
So if we're making up, I'm giving us more than we have. If we're 15% of the population and we're on social media, let's back up and make sure everybody knows what social media is. We have a diverse listening audience here. I run into grandmamas all the time in wheelchairs who say they listening.
All right, excellent.
So let's say what we mean by social media.
So social media is being a part of one of these many groups of sites that allow people to communicate with each other. So we have your Facebook, your Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest. Every day there seems to be a new one popping up, but those are, pretty much the ones that are most popular nowadays.
Yes. So Big Mama, y'all heard of that before, right? Yeah. So let's say we make up 20, 23, 25%, much as I be seeing these kids on there. What percentage of the jobs just in social media?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Do we make up?
We make up 2%. That's according to numbers that came out this year. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, those are the key players. Their African American workforce is 2%. And let's not talk about women.
No.
Because it's not. No. It's almost non-existent.
It ain't even that, right?
Right.
So sisters ain't nowhere to be found.
Not at all.
So y'all, really, we want you to hear this. That in a place where we are essentially consumers,
absolutely,
and producers to some degree in social media, we contribute to social media and use it well. We got some black folks getting down on social media in terms of making sure everybody's up to date on this and that, and politicizing and socializing people in some really excellent ways. We also got some stupid sexting and all that craziness going on too. But if we are at a minimum 20% of that traffic, we should be, when something is proportional, y'all know we've talked about this, proportional would mean that we should make up maybe 20% of the social media workforce. Just like in school, if we make up 15% of the seniors in AP English, that means if things are proportional, we should be getting about 15% of the A's, about 15% of the C's, etc., etc. Nothing's ever going to be right on. But if you're 15% of something and you're only making up 2% of that, that's way disproportional. That's the point we're trying to get to. So one of the areas we need to step up our game in terms of what we're bringing to the table, as well as bursting doors down. And it can't just be, now y'all brothers, listen here. The only one who was listening back in the 1800s was Frederick Douglass. When we fought for the right to vote, that 15th Amendment wasn't for people who look like me. That was for Chris. It's not your fault, baby. I know you weren't there and it wasn't you. The 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote.
Right.
Women of any color, including white women, didn't get the right to vote until the 19th Amendment. So here, when we're talking about technology and who's running it, who's making the decisions, women are still being left in the dust.
Absolutely.
I think across the board, when it comes to black women, you know how they say we just a speck. I think we is just a speck.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So that's something to be conscious of. And so I say that to you because I know you're a good brother, and I know that there are other progressive brothers who are very engaged in technology and community access to technology, that when we set our agenda, when we say there should be a black agenda around digital literacy, digital access, digital production, we have to, in school, I bring up school a lot, we've got to disaggregate those numbers. We can't just say it's a black agenda, because if we say it's a black agenda and then we're happy if it's almost all men, You know, something that I learned that I'll repeat a lot is it's not a racial justice agenda if it's just about half the population. So here we have a chance for black men and boys to even be able to step up and say, we need more space, we demand this, we're preparing ourselves for this, and our sisters will not be left in the dust this time.
No, absolutely. And
Speak to that.
I think we need it. I mean, but at 2%, it's not a lot of us at all.
No, ridiculous.
But the thing...
As we grow...
Yeah.
It's got to be all of us.
Exactly. I think it goes back to gender stereotypes, though, that computers are a man thing.
Yeah.
But get this. There are actually more women or female video game players than men now.
Isn't that interesting?
Because, video games are not just the thing you connect to your TV and run around and shoot each other. No. Angry Birds and all those games on your phone.
What's that?
Angry Birds. That's a popular game that comes out on all the different cell phones that people really attach to. But Solitaire.
Is that a lot of Solitaire?
Yeah, exactly.
And like The Sims and
stuff. The Sims, all of those things. That's video gaming. We don't often think of that as gaming.
And that's kind of complicated.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's a lot you got to manage and manipulate.
Yeah.
Which is really wonderful because all of that is increasing our brain development.
Absolutely.
There's stronger synaptic connections being made, and that kind of thing. That technology good, abuse of technology bad.
I think for both men and women, though, we need to start looking at ownership.
Yes.
Because not that this would happen in a million years, but imagine Google wakes up tomorrow, we don't want to play no more. Facebook wakes up tomorrow, we don't want to play no more. Twitter wakes up tomorrow, we don't want to play no more. All that information we've been posting and giving to them for free, helping them become billionaires.
That's right.
All that information is lost because we don't
own it.
We don't own the servers. We don't own. So in essence, we don't own our own information. They own it.
That's the real business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the same thing we say about owning businesses.
Yes.
What's the numbers? I'm embarrassed, y'all. I don't know the numbers. Chris might know them because you're more active in the Chamber of Commerce. The amount of black dollars, how long they stay in the black community versus how quickly they leave.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but I know it is.
It's bad.
It's not good at all.
It should circulate multiple times in the black community.
I don't even think it circulates once.
So the money we get, we run and spend it with everyone else. And that's why the black community can never become economically stable and self-sufficient. We've got to have spaces and places and ways to manage our money individually and collectively if we're to grow and sustain our community.
Absolutely.
And the world of media, the world of technology, the world of social media in particular is a fabulous location at which we can be at the cutting edge.
Yes.
And do that and maybe model that then for some other areas. But let's take a step back.
All right.
Let's go back to I'm hearing this old funk song from the 70s in my mind. Let me say Chocolatites. Let's go way, way back. You too young for that. Okay. Somebody knows who the Chocolatites are. I know. 359-9227 if you know. Okay, so digital divide. Explain what the digital divide is, and let's try to give people our best sense of moving from no access, no understanding to where we are now with the creation and founding of InfoCity.
All right.
Digital divide, what's that?
So digital divide is really the separation of the haves versus the have-nots when it comes to digital resources. And so we're actually improving. Like I said, we're catching up, but the train is always moving a little faster than we're able to run. But for a long time, that number I think I said was 80% or whatever. It was much, much lower.
Yes.
And you look at the digital divide as not only having access to the equipment, but also having access to training and knowing how to utilize it.
And again, not being scared of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the digital divide, of course, almost always divides along class lines.
Yes.
And anytime you have class divisions, you automatically have racial divisions because of what we call intersectionality. That's the intersection of, say, race and class, gender and class, that kind of thing.
Also age.
And age absolutely, because that's
division.
one of the things I wanted to ask you about. So we know our young people, even little kids,
yes,
are manipulating technology. When it comes to people 50 plus,
yes,
where are we?
Well, then we have to start looking at age and class.
Correct.
Because we've done some projects in the community, and we've noticed that a lot of people, their kids get them a tablet every year, or they get them a laptop, or they get them a cell phone, and then they come to us and they say, what am I supposed to do with this? You know?
So their kids are giving them technology,
right, absolutely,
that they may have some phobias about. So we're going to have to take a short break.
All right.
But let's come back and talk about that, because like I said, we've got a very diverse listening audience, definitely across age. And let's see how we can bring us old folk along too.
Okay.
We'll be right back, y'all. Stay with us.
Access Live can be heard every Wednesday afternoon from 2 to 3 p.m. on WBCP 1580 AM in Champaign-Urbana. You can learn more about the Access Initiative by visiting their website at www.access-initiative2.org.
And we're back. This is Access Live, a community education and engagement initiative of the Access Initiative. I'm your host, Imani Bazzell, and with me in the studio is my good brother, Chris Ham, who is schooling us about technology, where we are all up in it, where we are running behind, and what the future holds for us. And you know and I know that this is also a show about the African American status of mental health and healing. So what's the connection here? Chris,
yes,
what's the connection? What does our knowledge of, use of, creation of things digital, what kind of impact does that have on our sense of self, our mental health and well-being, from our children to our age and older? Would you see a connection?
Yes, absolutely. There's a connection to quality of life, and quality of life has a direct impact on your sense of self.
It really does. You hit the nail on the head. And in schools they talk about, and in psychology they talk about this idea of self-efficacy.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
Yes. So this sense of there's something out here that I can master is a big boost to self-confidence. So self-efficacy is about, can I have an impact on this? Can I affect this? Can I control this? So what we're after, a lot of times people use this phrase, we're looking for high self-esteem. It's actually a little bit deeper than that. What we're really after is promoting self-efficacy. And so that's the connection I want people to understand. The more we access and make use of technology, it's the 21st century, y'all, we will have a greater sense of ourselves and our abilities.
Yes.
And the better you get at something, the more you want to do it. Because we want to go from not just consuming media, but actually producing it, creating it, and the big thing you said, owning. So we got a call over the break where our caller was asking Chris to talk about where are we now in our listening audience, meaning in our geography, where are we in the fight for digital equity? So what we were doing just before the break, we were going to walk through the sort of we ain't got nothing, right? Which we can go back to. I'm going to tell you how pitiful it was. I got access to stuff. I remember this would have been 92 or 93.
All right.
Okay. I was writing this really important grant for a local not-for-profit. We had never gone after money like this. We had never sort of stepped out of our box and said, hey, let's go run with the big dogs. And first you had to write and say, this is what we would do. And you had to be invited to apply. And they was only going to invite just a few organizations across the whole country.
All right.
This was really a big dog thing. Honey, we sent that in and got invited to apply for the whole thing.
Nice.
Honey, let me tell you something. We knocked it out. It was beautiful. I was working so hard. And you know, sometimes we can work down to the wire. I'm literally, and you know, of course you want to print it out on nice, you know, nice paper, nice high quality paper, et cetera, et cetera. And this was before people went paperless, obviously in 92, 93. And we would like 10 copies and all this. So I got all that together. I am speeding to FedEx. Don't you know they locked that door on me? They locked that door on me.
Wow.
But this is the thing that's going to make you laugh. So I go back to the office in the morning, my head's down. I'm like, y'all won't believe this. Because it had to be in that day. And then somebody in the office said, oh, well, we can just send it to our friend so-and-so and have them print it out and take it right over to the people. They were talking about email and the internet.
Yes.
I did not believe it. I'm like, really? I mean, I could not. They could, even after they're like, yes, give me, because it was in a Word document or whatever. They're like, okay, give me this. We're going to send it to our friends in D.C. They'll print it out and they'll physically go to the office, you know, the Guggenheim Foundation or whoever it was, and they will have it on their desk before 4 o'clock today. Because that was the deadline, was that day. So I had to get it to FedEx the night before.
Right.
The whole day I'm like, so you're trying to tell me that this thing I got right here in Champaign, we can push a magic button and they're going to get the thing I wrote. They could not all day long. Are you sure? That is a lack of digital literacy, right? So that's 1992, 93.
Right.
So that's kind of pitiful. But I could use a computer. I could make flyers. Obviously, I could do documents. I had no idea that you could send something to somebody in another city or country.
Well, it was still very new at that time for, you know, the general public at least.
So given that, so we're trying to take this journey around the digital divide, because I do think that there were people my age in 1992 and 93 who didn't think there was a special man inside a wire running through the wire from here to D.C. to make that happen. So I was behind the curve. So that's just a silly example, but pretty serious. I did not believe it until the next day when I talked to the person, and then I called the people in D.C. who needed it, and I said, okay, you got it right? Yes, we got it. I said, don't open it, though, because I want you to get the ones on pretty paper. So can I still send you the pretty? Yes, you can send us the pretty paper. But I did meet the deadline. Yes, Imani, you met the deadline. So, okay. So that's early 90s. So in the 80s, there just had to have been a huge, because I remember in the 80s, people were learning how to become computer programmers and stuff, is what I remember about the 80s. But that was something they did. That's what other people did, in my mind. What's your call on the 80s and where African Americans were?
Well, I think we have to take a step back and look at Champaign-Urbana. We're a special situation.
We sure are. Supercomputer USA.
Exactly. We're in a rare position where we are a highly digital city, and it goes back to not just the 80s, it goes back to the 60s.
Yes, it does.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Plato.
Yeah, I remember.
Plato was invented at the University of Illinois here, and that introduced protocols for email, chatting, texting. All of those things were being done in the 60s and 70s. It was very localized, and it wasn't for the general public. But that all was invented here, and a lot of those technologies is what shaped the way we communicate today.
And see, that's one of the ways we talk about the digital divide in a campus town.
Yes.
Because you've got the highest of the high, nobody's better than us,
right,
on this side of University Avenue, and cross the street,
exactly,
and nobody's ever heard of such a thing.
Exactly.
So
Blocks
that's
away.
that whole town gown divide
and
that we're still struggling with.
And that's big here, because if
it's
you fast
huge.
forward to around that same time, you're talking about the early mid-90s, the way we view the internet, the browser, that was invented.
That's right. See,
Yes.
I went to a conference a few years ago sponsored by the folks who created all this, along with the Graduate School of Library and Information Science, and I got all that. I was actually on one of the panels on the digital divide, but I learned a lot at that conference because they were the old heads. The old heads were there telling the real stories. And that was when I first heard the term terabyte. Right? They're like, you talking about megabits and megabytes.
Right.
Let me tell you about the terabytes and the stuff even higher than that.
Yeah.
That was where I heard that term. And actually, I just bought a external hard drive that has a terabyte of space.
Yeah, and that's becoming more common.
Right.
And if you fast forward to now on the same campus that in the 60s invented the way we communicate today, that in the 90s they invented the browser. Now we have one of the world's largest computers over there in Blue Waters.
Blue Waters, yes.
I want to say top 5, but don't quote me on that.
At that conference I was at, they were just starting to talk about Blue Waters. So, okay, the 80s, we didn't know what was going on.
Right. And so where do we fit in? Right, absolutely. 80s, we weren't there.
The closest place we were games like Mario Brothers, which wasn't Atari. Yes, Atari. That was it. That was the closest we were getting to this idea of, playing around with something and something being technology. So so then we get to the early mid 90s. Where was the digital divide in that time period?
It definitely started to emerge, and become more prevalent.
We became aware of it.
We knew it was stuff out there, but it did not impact us. I remember, at that time, I was still in high school, and we had a computer in the house.
Yeah.
But, it was nowhere near connected at that time.
Right.
And we were the only one of the few people on the block.
Right.
The friends would come over and just to look at it,
Yeah, I think I had gotten a computer. They were big and clunky.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only reason I had one is because somebody gave it to me. I didn't quite get the need at home, though I did have to work on one at work. It was still just the basics, and it wasn't on the internet.
Right, you weren't connected.
It was really just producing documents.
Right, using Word and print it out on the dot matrix and those kind of things.
Right. Making programs for dinners and that kind of thing. So, okay. So when does mainstream privileged America hit the internet, have regular access to computers, realizes there's an internet, they're moving around and doing things? When does that happen for the mainstream?
I really say that happened mid-late 90s.
Mid to late 90s.
That's around the time I actually came to Champaign.
Okay.
And I remember you, as a black kid coming to college, you saw that divide immediately. None of the black kids had computers.
And that was about class.
Right.
Yeah.
And all the other kids came to school with these big,
and
nice,
now,
fancy computers.
You have to bring a computer
you have
to
to,
school.
right.
It's a part of admissions now.
Yeah, most of the computer labs that existed in the 90s on campus, they're gone.
Yeah, because everybody's supposed to, just like you're supposed to have a textbook, you're supposed to have the computer. And so there are these class issues that drive the digital divide. But what are the changes we need to make in our minds in how we think about the digital world? How do we shrink that divide as well? Not just the physical one, but the psychological one.
We have to recognize that these are tools. And these tools are not going anywhere, and they're going to get larger and larger. And so the longer we wait to accept that, the harder it will be to deal with the realities that they're here.
So I remember this was mid to late 90s, our first, our meaning SisterNet, our first partnership with the Graduate School of Library and Information Science. That's when they were still running PrairieNet.
PrairieNet, yes.
Which was one of the first efforts to close the digital divide locally. Call me, 359-9227, if you can add more to that. That was just my first knowledge was PrairieNet, where they were making it really inexpensive or even free for people to get PrairieNet accounts.
Yes.
They were refurbishing computers to try to get computers in people's homes. So that for a long time has been the effort to try to close the digital divide, to get people computers in their home and to teach people the basics of navigation. Are you saying we are at a place now where we're at about 80% capacity in terms of that for the African American community? It's in our house and we can do basic navigation. Or were you saying that was more about 70%?
70-80%.
70-80%. Let's break that demographic down even more. Is there a difference between the South and the North? Is there a difference between the Midwest and the coast? So is there a difference between urban and rural?
Yes. I would say that the coast definitely probably have higher numbers just because the Midwest, we are so rural.
Yeah.
And access across all ethnicities in rural areas, it's much lower than in urban areas.
Yes. So some of this is about geography.
Yes.
The West Coast and the East Coast get everything first.
And it's about access.
Yeah, and they get access, they get saturation, and then it slowly gets to the Midwest. The South, do you have a sense of where the South is, or you just want to pick out Atlanta's and Houston's?
Well, the major cities, the urban cities, they're on top of their game.
Same thing, right.
But you have to figure a lot of these services, especially when you're talking about internet, somebody has to give it to us. Yeah. And when we look at population densities in the South, it's not that tight.
Right.
If I'm a big company, I'm not going to invest a lot of resources in this area if it's not a lot of people living there.
So that's what we're going to talk about when we come back to the break. Where are those wires? Where's the stuff that gets us connected? And there was some money out here a few years ago. I want you to tell us what happened to that money and where are we now. When we get back, y'all stay with us. It's going to get juicy.
The Access Initiative mission is to build a trauma and justice-informed system of care designed to create a healed community that works to ensure that youth and their families are resilient, resourceful, responsible, and restored.
And we're back. This is Access Live, a community education and engagement initiative of the Access Initiative. I'm your host, Imani Bazzell, and with me in the studio is Brother Chris Ham. Chris is bringing us up to date on how close we're getting to close up that digital divide, that digital gap. So, we were walking through the chronology of where black folks were and where we're getting to in terms of our access to, our understanding of, our engagement with the digital world. I said something about PrairieNet. So that was going on. PrairieNet, so there were things like PrairieNets that popped up around the country. They were funded with library dollars, other national dollars, but always money sort of related to universities to try to help do something about the digital divide. So SisterNet did a number of projects with the Library and Information Science School, or what we call GISLIS for short, to get black women and their families more engaged in being able to get online, get computers in their homes, and begin to produce materials. So, fast forward, it is 2008, and it looks like the bottom is falling out of the stock market. Huge scare. President Bush is still in office. Obama gets elected, but he's not even in office yet. And this huge thing is happening. It's a deep, deep recession, and everybody's saying we're about to fall off the cliff. We're an inch away from an actual depression. It hasn't been this bad since 1928-29. So, then we get this thing when President Obama takes office that was called ObamaNet. Right? Because y'all remember there were all these stimulus dollars, and we know where most of the stimulus dollars went, right? The billionaires. So we went and took care of all the banks, and they got all their golden parachutes, multi-million-dollar retirement packages, and all of that. But I'm not angry. So, stimulus dollars, the idea was to stimulate the economy, which is what President Roosevelt did at the time of the Depression. Mm-hmm. They created jobs. They put people to work. Because when people are working, they spend, and you can build the economy back up.
Absolutely.
So, one set of those stimulus dollars was about the digital divide.
Yes.
And so that was about the racial digital divide as well as the geographic, rural versus urban. And it was about big broadband. Mm-hmm. Explain what big broadband is and what happened here in town regarding those dollars.
Okay, so big broadband is just really high-speed internet service. And it's really to lay what's known as fiber optics, and you're sending the digital signals through glass, which makes it be able to go extremely fast.
It's like if you have a HD TV and before you had a black and white where you had to stand next to the antenna and hold it.
Absolutely.
That's the difference,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And the goal was to make Champaign have some of the fastest internet in the country.
But specifically for people who didn't have access.
Right. So the way they determined who would be eligible was they did a survey door by door and questionnaires to see who at the time didn't have access at all. And so I think it was neighborhoods that had less than 40-50%, connected.
Like my neighborhood.
That's who they're going to hook up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're talking well over $20 million went into the project. And it was actually 2 grants.
Yes.
It was the below ground,
underground,
which was the technology to bring in all the wires and do all the connecting. But also, what I felt was more important, the above ground. And that was going to provide the training, the resources, and we can give you this real fast stuff, but we're also going to show you what you can do with it.
This is what you can do with it, and potentially this is how you can make a living off of it.
Absolutely.
Back to the ownership piece.
Yes.
Okay, so we called that UC to B.
Yes, sir.
Urbana-Champaign.
Big broadband.
Big broadband.
Absolutely.
The 2 was for BB.
Mm-hmm.
Who was in charge of that?
So it was really a collaborative effort by both cities, Urbana and Champaign,
Mm-hmm.
and the University of Illinois.
Yeah, so they're the tripartite.
Yes, exactly.
And you and some other people made a big effort to make sure black folks weren't going to be locked out of those conversations.
Absolutely.
And we're going to somehow benefit from that money coming to our community off of our backs.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Well, really, that's the birthplace of Info City.
Info City, we made it.
Info City CU. So during that time, there were several people involved doing different initiatives related to technology. Brian Bell of the Digital Equality Initiative, who's also with Info City.
And Brian, sorry he couldn't join us today. He was going to be here. I'm still going to beat him up when I see him, though.
Dr. Abdul Kalamat, he was involved. Both of those individuals actually wrote part of the Above Ground grant. But guess what?
I did too.
You did too, absolutely. We didn't get that funding.
We didn't get that one.
But the below ground, and I don't know if you remember several years ago where they had these big orange cables all over town.
I remember.
So all of the way the grant worked, all of Champaign, Urbana is connected, but they went to the home, into the houses of people in those areas that weren't connected.
Including this very neighborhood we're sitting in.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so I was part of a team, that was the outreach team, to really try to get people to sign up.
Yeah.
Long story short, for many different reasons, our goals were not met. But the same group of individuals, we were all working on different projects, because around that time, I don't know if you heard of eBlack.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. That was a project of Dr. Al-Kalimatz. He had his graduate student, Noah Lester.
Mm-hmm.
manage that. Lestra.
Yep.
Yes.
And so all these projects were going on. I was, doing websites for people in the community. Brian was giving out computers.
That's right.
To people in the community. And then we started.
And running the program through Parkland. That's right.
And so we started meeting.
Yes.
And saying, we didn't get this above ground, but, if I come to your house and I give you a brand new, shiny new car and you don't have a driver's license, it looks nice, but what you going to do with it?
Nothing.
So we really said we have to get the people educated on what to do this technology. And so we had lots of meetings. You were at many of them. And so what we decided was we're going to have a community benefit fund. So people who subscribe to this service, a small percentage will be taken and placed somewhere. And that funding would be used to be the seed money to really work on the above ground component on our own.
The training, more access, etc.
Exactly. And so it was approved by the UCB board. Fast forward again, it never really happened.
At least
not in the way that we hoped. The cities, it really just became stressful.
Yes.
UCB, and so they were looking for an out.
Yeah.
And in comes ITV3. And so many people who subscribed to UCB now their bills say ITV3.
They sure do, because they sent me one, and I called them and said, I don't know who you think you're talking to. I never signed a contract with you. This is not what I agreed to. And I have not paid a bill.
Okay.
But I also don't have the damn access.
Oh,
I had to go back to No, it just didn't work right.
Okay.
They never brought me the right equipment. I'm like, I'm not paying for a service I ain't getting.
Right.
And this was supposed to be about local ownership. Y'all ain't from here. So a lot went wrong.
Right.
But we still got those fiber. We still got that fiber in the ground. So where do we go from here?
Well, with that fiber in the ground, they're expanding to the entire community now. And so more people are going to have access to that. And more people are getting Comcast or whoever. Volo is a local provider. They're actually an InfoCity partner. They're starting to install and expand in downtown Urbana. So where do we go from there?
Who's paying for that? Because that grant money's gone.
Grant money's gone. That's Volo's initiative. They're
doing, and these businesses are paying for it.
Because it's
going to pay off.
Right. You don't have to charge as much as Comcast and still make some money.
Yeah.
So we still have been meeting, all the time. What are we going to do? So we kind of all joined forces. So really, InfoCity CU, it is a collaboration of campus and community. So on the community side, you have my company, Chris Media. You have Brian Bell, and he started a nonprofit. He's no longer at Parkland.
Right.
The Digital Equality Initiative.
Right.
On the campus side, Gislis is still heavy into this.
Yeah.
And so you have the...
And Afro.
Right. Center for Community Informatics Research, which is led by Dr. Kate Williams. Then we pulled the Department of African American Studies in with Dr. Ron Bailey.
That's right.
So he's on board. And then we have two graduate students, Noah Lenstra. He's still deep in it, and he's getting his PhD at Gislis. And then we have Sister Angela Slates.
Yeah.
She's born and raised in Champaign.
Absolutely, good sister.
And she's a PhD in
she's
education.
She's in ed policy. Yes.
And so InfoCity
y'all
really...
don't be leaving Sister Net out of. We've been trying to do what we can do.
Oh, y'all gonna be in it. Absolutely. We want everybody in it.
I know.
But we were just the people that have come together and started it. And so our goal is really, we want a seat at the table.
That's right.
We want to figure out how we can help organize the future of this town with all this going on. Because part of the story we're going to talk about is Research Park and how that's growing leaps and bounds with all these tech companies. But guess what? A lot of these companies can't even hire local because the skills, the applicants aren't here. And so we want...
That's where I want to go, Brian.
Okay, Chris.
Brian, see, I'm so upset that Brian wasn't here. See, I'm really going to get you now, Brian. Chris.
Yes.
What are the job opportunities available in the digital world that we need to be thinking about stepping into?
Well, first of all, we have to start getting our children interested at an early age. Just a little side note, again, at Kenwood, they have this program called Tech Time.
Yes.
At the end of the day, 4 days a week, students at Kenwood can stay after school and learn about computer hardware, intro to coding. Again, my daughter is 9, and they call her one of the older kids. but programming.
But see, we need a Saturday school like that in our community.
I think they're either Neighborhood Connections or Tap In.
Yes.
And so they're going to different places. We just need more of it.
Yes.
But coding, designing, apps, all of these things are our careers and the entrepreneurship piece. But let me finish talking about Info City.
Yes.
And so what we're doing, a lot of those same initiatives that PrairieNet was doing through Brian Bell's company, we're still giving. Brian Bell gives over 1,000 computers away.
I know, bless his heart.
You know, we're designing websites, but eBlack is still growing. The latest,
and that's like an archive of Black history, local Black history.
And we're looking to take that model and expand it to any group in town. But the thing that we're really pushing now is the CU Wiki.
Yes.
You know, CU Wiki allows any person, group, whatever, to have a web page.
Say what a wiki is.
So a wiki is a online...
That's not a Star Wars monster?
that's a Wookiee.
That's a Wookiee, okay.
So a wiki is a web page that, I don't know if you heard of Wikipedia.
Wikipedia,
but allows the community to edit and control.
Yes.
So let's say SisterNet wanted a page.
We got a page. It's just sitting there because I don't know what to do.
Oh, but we can log in it right now and update it.
Yes.
You know, if you got a favorite pet, you know, some interesting things. The fastest Wi-Fi spots in town. That's on the wiki. Somebody has gone out and cataloged all the street art. You know.
I love that.
It's on the wiki. But
so y'all listen. You can get a wiki page.
You just go to cuwiki.net and say create one. You don't even need a login.
Yeah.
You can just create it.
cuwiki.net.
This past weekend, we were at the Heartland Maker Fest at Urbana. We went around and everybody there got their own wiki page.
That's
and we made a
great.
nice little video. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, in a nutshell, proud Black man.
Yes.
What do you want for the African American community locally and nationally when it comes to the world of the digital?
I want us to have a seat at the table. I want us to be a part of the decision-making process and help make decisions on where we're going with all this. But to get at the table, we have to step up our game and start creating this content. For so long, we just consume.
Yes.
And we need to be a part of the producers. We need to create it. We need to have our own spaces. And with Info City and other initiatives, because we're not the only game in town.
Sure.
But we want to connect because we operate in these moated silos.
Yes.
And we want to connect.
So Info City can be the place we go to say, you sold me, Chris.
Yes.
Can I hang out with you? What can we do here? Let's build this Black agenda for our digital world, and let's help make Info City what we really know it can be. That can be our tool, our vehicle for getting where we want to get. Absolutely. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Info City website.
InfoCityCU.net. You want to be a part of us? We're open to everybody. It's a big contact button. You can just stay informed with us, or if you are an organization want to partner with us, our partner list is growing, or if you just want to come and hang out with us when we go to all these different places, because we're at Urbana Adult Education.
Yep.
We have students all over town, and if we have community people who want to just go and volunteer, you fill out that form, we'll get in touch with you immediately.
Beautiful. Well, y'all, with this archaic technology we have in the radio station right here and right now, it's going to get upgraded. And we will enter the 21st century soon here at WBCP. We hope you enjoyed this skip down digital divide memory lane, and we hope that you embrace this vision of Info City CU. Come join the pack. Let's stay together. Keep holding hands. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Access Live. Access Initiative is a trauma and justice-informed system of care. We're glad that you joined us today. Please join us every Wednesday at 2:00 p.m. for Access Live. Thank you and be well.